Tribe, we're back with part 2 of 3 of fixing your running gait. Today we're going to show you a couple techniques that are going to work on a little bit of rotation of the upper body, as well as understanding the impact to the ground and steady state. So let's get after it. First, we're going to talk about the foot impacting the ground. When we are running, we want more of the forefoot hitting the ground. The reason we want that forefoot hitting the ground is because if we hit the ground with the heel, then we're almost stopping ourselves, right? So if we look at this, and this is the way we're running, I'm literally stopping myself so I can take back off. We don't want that. What we want is a controlled fall when we are running, so that foot's only coming forward a little bit and I'm falling down onto it. And when I fall onto it, I'm actually landing a little bit on the outside of the foot, but it's going to be the front half of our foot. If our arches are strong enough to handle our body weight, they're going to be able to spring us forward in the next step that we do. In general, every time we put that foot down and drive off, we're creating a force that's 2 to 3 times our body weight. So if we're having a hard time even just going into a calf raise on a single leg, every time you run, it's going to be amplified by 2 or 3 times. So starting off and understanding how our foot is impacting the ground and start building that rhythm and pattern right from the get-go is going to help us once we get out onto the run. So to do that in a controlled manner, rather than just going for a run and hoping that we can do that, is by doing some bobbing walks. So with the bobbing walk, and Nadine's going to demonstrate these, she's just going to step the foot forward, and once she places the foot on the ground, she's going to do a slight knee bend, and then she's going to drive off when I tell her to. She's going to drive off of the forefoot. Actually, this would be the back leg, excuse me. Backwards looking. She's going to drive off the back foot. You can see how kind of that forefoot is. She's going to lock the knee out, push through the toes, which is going to raise her body up. It's going to squeeze her glute, and it's going to open up the front side of that hip so she should feel maybe a little bit of a stretch in there. Then that knee is going to come back up and carry through, and then it's going to kind of put the foot down. Running slow is really hard to mimic, okay? So we're going to kind of work our way through that. And then she's going to do that same thing. She's going to land that forefoot. She's going to push down. She's going to lock the knee out, spring back up, and just continue walking in that aspect. What we are looking for is that you are feeling the knee lock out every time. We're feeling the glute fire up every time that leg is behind us, as well as when we are extending, we want to make sure that we extend all the way up, so when we take our next stride, we almost feel a stretch or the muscle firing up in here as well too. So when we do this at a little bit faster pace, I'm just going to have Nadine walk through these, and you're going to just go walk back and forth doing these bobbing walks. She's purposely putting a little bit of pause in there to make sure she can feel the leg lock out, the glute fire up, and just use your hands as balance as you need to work through that. Good. That's all it is. And then you can just walk around all day. You go to the grocery store, you just practice bobbing as you walk through. Now, it looks kind of funny. I used to have this history teacher that actually walked like that. Mr. Wilkins, really good guy. But little did I know, he's probably a really good runner. That's the first thing that we can focus on, is getting that foot to impact the ground and drive through that foot. Once we understand that, we're just going to talk about that rotation. Since our feet are natural shock absorbers, we can use our hips and our lower half of our body as almost a spring, and that spring is going to happen with a little bit of the rotation. Now, in general, we're used to having a spring kind of be pushed down and expand, but what's actually happening is when it's getting pushed down, it's actually rotating and unrotating. We can use all that work that we have in the hips to do that same thing. So we always want to work with the opposite arms, with the opposite leg. So if my left leg is forward, the right arm is going to be forward, and that's to make the rotation between the lower half and the upper half of the body. So she probably feels a little bit of tension into that midline. So when she drives off this back leg, she's allowing that spring to rotate in the other direction. So when she comes off, takes that step, that body is now rotating. She's compressing that spring, and then she pushes off. She's opening the spring and then compressing it. Good. So I'm just going to have you walk down with those arms swing, and I'm going to be imagining that we are on that, we are that spring. So when she has the foot on the ground, that spring is compressed, and we're just going to walk. And she's going to open, close. So that spring is going to work every time she steps. These are, you know, best we got for examples here. Thanks for it. But we should be feeling, and do you feel that, Nadine? Do you feel that the kind of that spring, that rotation that's popping you up? And that's the way that we should be running. We need to use those arms. We want to rotate here rather than the up and down of running just up and down. And when we run up and down, we're just hopping. And usually we can hear people who are just running up and down by the feet slapping the ground, the heels slapping the ground, the shoes slapping the ground. And we want to avoid that. We want to think about more of a push and pull of the upper body than the up and down. We're purposely making you go up and down, especially with these bobbing walks, but that's to make sure that we're firing through the ground, through the forefoot, through the glute, through the hip, so we are pushing through the hip and we're not pulling with that heel. A good way to put your arms to help with this is I like being more of a robot, and if you run and try to reach your arms out, then you're going to really feel the rotation happening in the transverse plane, which is the plane right here, and we're working in this direction. So we want to give those a shot. After we practice these, and you know, spend whatever you like. If you want to spend a minute working on these walking bobs, you can do that. If you want to walk around your house that way, it's really good. And in general, if we have weak arches, walking as much as possible in shoes and out of shoes with that purpose of squeezing the glute, fully locking that knee out and driving off the forefoot is going to greatly improve your running in the long term by taking these small steps every day. Yeah, you know what? People might give you a hard time at work the way that you're walking, but you got a purpose, right? We want to run pain-free, and that's what we're trying to help with. Once we do all that stuff, we can also add it into our steady state training, right? So steady state is something that a lot of people don't focus on. Especially nowadays, everything's, like we always talk about, everything's just fast, hard, heavy. We just want to get it done. We want to be the best at it. But the learning really happens when we slow things down. We can understand the movement, and we can understand how it's supposed to feel. And when we train steady state, it's a very, very slow pace that we're doing this. This means that we be doing, on average, a 15 to 20 minute mile. More, you know, depending on your normal pace, but it's purposely, like if you're running a 10-minute or 12-minute mile, run this at, you know, a 16 or 18-minute. If you're under 10-minute mile runner, I would run like a 15-minute mile pace. This pace should be set at something that you can feel the response off the ground. You can feel the muscles doing the work that they're supposed to. You should be able to fully hold a conversation with your heart rate being down and just you're barely breathing heavy at all. Like it's more of a calm situation, almost to the point where you feel like you're not working out. But that's the purpose. It's to set the body up to understand that movement pattern over and over again, because running in general, you're going to have a lot of steps, a lot of load, a lot of volume taking in. And kind of one thing that we always say is it takes 300 repetitions to create a faulty pattern in the body, and it takes 3,000 to correct. So if you're a person who walks 10,000 steps a day and you walk 10,000 steps on your toes, imagine how much work you are going to get done on those arches. Look at how much you're going to correct that position and how much you're going to help yourself starting to run. So give these a try. Let us know what you think. As always, like, subscribe if you think this is educational, and we'll see you back next week for part 3. Don't forget our running seminar. It's going to be April 23rd here at Primal Path. That link should be in the bio.